Hello, my friends, and welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Rick Smith. This is the place to learn tips, tricks, and strategies to help you run and grow your IT service business, whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me introduce you to my co-host out of Dallas, Texas there, 5K Technical Service Zone, Mr. Corey Kirkendall. How are you today, sir?
Doing well, brother. Doing well, man. Looking forward to this episode. I think everybody's going to get a lot out of it, so let's make it happen.
Sounds good. And from Chicago, the one, the only, Mr. Picture on the board what's that thing called in Chicago?
Banner?
The banner you had in Chicago. What was that? What location was that?
And then the West Loop.
The West Loop. Okay. Mr. Picture on the West Loop. Paco LeBron from Prodigy Text. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Mr. Smith. It's funny you should bring that up because there's some drama going on with all that situation going on right now. So it's very timely that you say that right now. I didn't fill you in on that from this week, but yes, I'm doing well. I cannot complain. Better than good, better than most. Ready to kick off this Memorial Day weekend, and I bet you all didn't even know it was Memorial Day weekend because y'all have been so damn busy.
The days just flow together, my man. They just flow together. I know one thing. One of you guys, somebody got a number to the weatherman or to, excuse me, whoever controls the weather, call them because it's like 42 degrees in New Jersey today. It was cold yesterday and it's cold today. I don't know what is going on. It was like 80 or 75 a week ago. Now we're back to, late winter. So I'm not sure. But so if anybody got any insights on how to get the weather up, let me know.
Well, I'll take that 40. If you take these tornadoes and hailstorms, brother, we got baseball size and golf ball size hail falling out of the sky. So I'll take that all day.
Okay, I'll trump you both. Where we had our first dust storm in quite some time, and that thing just went 0 to 100 visibility like that, and we could not see a damn thing as we were driving. We literally got an alert that says pull over, stay alive, is what the text message alert said. Yes, from the iPhone. Yes. So that was a very interesting time. I have not been in a dust storm before, and apparently that was some crazy stuff. I'll tell you that.
Man, you know global warming ain't real, man. What you talking about?
Right.
Wow. Paco, that's interesting though. I learned 2 years ago, I think it is, that in like in the Middle East when they have those dust storms like that, it's called a haboob. Did you ever heard that term? That's what it's called. And I did not know that. I thought someone said it to me. I thought they were joking, but it's really what it's called.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
So maybe Chicago had its own version of a mini haboob there.
A mini haboob, huh? Good to know.
But anyway, folks, let's get back on track here. So we start talking about the weather. Today's episode, we're going to talk about something. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about breaking up with your vendor when it's time to leave, when it's costing you more to stay than it is to leave. So today we're going to kind of put a bow on this and talk about when you come to a new vendor, how do you embrace the innovation and excellence with your new partner, what to expect, how to deal with the transition, and what you get out of it. So, the prior episode was sparked by my discontent with one of my vendors and my desire to leave, right? When I made the tough decision that it was time to basically turn tail and run, right? And get on out while I could. But, there is also a process on the other end of this, right? When you transition, it is not an easy thing to do. Anyone who's moved anything, whether it be your RMPSA, to just your AV vendor, to even if you just change vendors for, let's just say, what you use to sell your productivity, like Microsoft or something like that, there's still a process that you have to go through. And we're going to talk about that and a little bit on, how that feels. I will give some personal insight on where I am personally. But before I start talking about Rick, I want to get you guys' perspective on this and tell me a little bit about what is, how do you embrace that innovation when we've all made a switch before? So with some quick tips on how we would do that. Corey, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, man. Change is hard, man. and embracing innovation and doing things, man, what is always a tough one, because you try to balance that from jumping on that shiny ball approach and staying consistent, because you have choices to move or to stay and have to do absolutely nothing, man. So you making that choice and going through it, I know you were talking through it, is to say, hey, it was time to move on because we've seen some things to do. That's huge. But then now that you're at that place, now you have a whole new set of challenges of training, onboarding, going through things, adopting their technology and doing those things, man. So it's always hard to find what that balance is, man. But like I say, coming to that realization that it was done is probably the biggest step, and you've done that. Now the next challenge comes is figuring out, how do I make whatever it is I've done and where I want to go work well for me, right? And not get caught up in the old things that the other one was doing. So hey, you gotta let the new person, the new tool or whatever resource you bring in, make its own challenges and pitfalls, and not get caught in that trap of saying, man, this is familiar, so that you kind of hold your own self back.
Paco, you're muted, my friend.
How about that for the first time? I was gonna say it all sucks, but no. I think it's very important to make sure you're not emotional about your tools and on your business, right? And when I say emotional, I mean in a sense of, you love the product, it's gonna be better, it's gonna be great. And so when you're embracing innovation, sometimes, if you're closed-minded, you're not gonna be able to embrace that innovation or see it, right? And so when you do embrace something like that, you have to understand that, it's everyone has their own problems, like what Corey said. Everyone's going to have the same different solutions, different ways of doing business, right? But the goal is, you don't want to repeat the same thing you've been doing, because you repeat the same thing, you're going to get the same result, right? And so being able to go a little bit outside of your comfort zone, really focusing on the ability of, all right, I need X. This should do what I need it to do. My hope is that we'll be able to move forward with this, because it's going to solve my main pain points that I went ahead and left for. And so now we're going to have to go through the process of going through the motions so we can get to that area. I could tell you, it reminds me of when we had left Google Workspace the first time. We were 5 years into the business, moved to Microsoft 365, hated it. Now, mind you, I used to do a lot of Microsoft services prior to starting the business. I just fell into the Google world. And then I switched, hated it, and I was like, no, I can't do this. And I went back to Google Workspace. And then I think another 6 months later, I moved back to Microsoft. But then I made the decision, all right, this is going to help us on so many different fronts. We're able to live into the environments that 95% of our clients at the time was using. The second piece of it is, it allowed us to enhance the way we were, data storage, data governance, things of that nature, and then understanding licensing and better opportunities than what Google could provide us in the past. So we went through those motions. And then finally, now that we're on the platform, we can't even think to move back, because it just does not have the same capabilities that we needed, which caused us to switch in the first place, to embrace that innovation. So, I think that's
find my
what.
unmute button. Sorry about that. Well, one of the things I learned in doing this, right, and with the years of experience and all the people we've learned from, we've talked to, we've the conversations we've had amongst each other and with other MSPs and vendors, is there are three things that we took this on this time with these three things in mind, and I think they're important: the who, the what, and the how. Right. So when you're making a transition, who are you going to go with next? Why are you making this transition? And the most important thing is, how are you going to make this transition? Because it is very easy to say, I'm going to move. These people don't do what I need. These people do, or they say they do, and I'm going to make it. It's easy to make that decision, right? Well, it's easy to say that, but you have to now roll everything that you've used that tool for somewhere else. And there has to be a plan. There has to be a how you're going to do this, because it's not a turn it off today, turn on the other one tomorrow. So this is, you know, we've been making this transition, and it's been slow. And I'll tell you, we talked about when staying costs more than leaving, but it's gonna cost you to leave as well. And the reason I say that is a lot of times when you make a transition, you're gonna have to stay on 2 tools for maybe 30 days, 60 days, whatever the time frame may be, as you transition from A to B. And it's hard, you know, everybody, every vendor you talk to, everyone makes it seem like, hey, I can just, you know, you can just take all your agents off of this one and put all hours on there and everything will work fine. No, there's a lot of things that, if depending on how you've planned this out or how you've run your business in the past, there are a lot of things that are codependent on each other, that feed information to each other. And these are when you're defining the how and how you're going to do this, you have to take that into account. When I move, I'm just going to use this example. When I move from my RMM PSA to another one, all of the things that feed that RMM PSA or one or the other, all the things that feed that also have to play a role in the choice I'm making, right? They all have to, we have to think about billing. We have to think about if you have AV coming into it, or, you know, all the tools that we use, whatever that sprawl is, how it feeds there and how that affects my ecosystem. And all of those things are big choices to make. And there's, you know, there's a time frame involved in this. It is not a switch on, switch off thing, or switch off, switch on, however you want to say it. So, you know, the planning is important, but I'd say the biggest piece of that is that how. And, you know, we've discovered that movement cost us, because now we're paying for 2 tools for a time period, which is fine because it makes the transition itself smoother, right? We're not just jumping, and we're just, you know, and the organization of this is a lot more definitive. And I would say this, as someone who has had an argument with Paco, but a conversation with Paco many a times on the phone about trying something or seeing something. You know, it's very important to know why you're doing something, right? Why I am making this switch, and then that will then feed the how you're going to do this, because now you know what you're looking for as opposed to what you're trying to get out of it and how it works. So that is just something, you know, I just think that, and the other part of this is use your vendor that you're moving to. You need to really rely on them as well. Use the resources that they give you. If that means you talk to someone about onboarding, if you have a list of questions that you need answered, and if they can't help you with that part, then you're moving the wrong way, right? Because their job should be to help make this smooth. And this is when you're in that, I guess we would call it a quote unquote testing phase. This is one of the things that will help you to make a decision on whether you're doing the actual right thing. Because if they can't help you get from where you are to where you're trying to get with them, they're not going to help you when later on you have questions or concerns or problems. They're not going to help you then either, right? This is their test as well. So I think that is something for us all to keep in mind. I do not recommend, like I said, and I've said this plenty of times, I do not recommend trying to change things, you know, just habitually. And I, for one, always advocated staying to the end of the year and making changes at the end of the year. But we're just in a situation now where that just wasn't a feasible thing for us. But when you can, it's always probably better to do these things at the end of the year, because I will tell you this, what we're doing now, our accounting is all screwed up, and it's costing us some additional time to fix a few things that we probably wouldn't have to worry about if we'd done this at a different point.
Nah, man, that's big stuff, because what you're looking at, man, is that you're keeping your finger on the pulse of being a business owner, right? Because it's not just your tools there, man. It could be your accounting software, it could be HR, it could be, you know, your phone system, it could be just about anything. But what you're understanding is there's a cost of doing business and there's a cost to change, right? And if you put that being an MSP and being a service provider, right? You think about how the customers think, same exact way. There's a cost to change MSPs. There's a cost to change and do certain things from that perspective. So I would always say, man, that learning point, man, is something you take back and say, if my customers are leaving me or deciding to go somewhere else, that pain must have been really, really tough, because there is an added cost. They can't say, man, you costed me too much, and it's a price situation, because they're going to pay a hefty penny to make that transition, right? The onboarding fee, the offboarding fee, the changing, the new learning, all the things that has to go on. Then, they're going to lose a little bit of revenue because they got to change out, go through some training, have some things. So it's a big thing. So I would say, as you do that, not only for yourself, think about the impact of your customer and how they feel about that and what they're going through, because, you probably got a new customer portal you got to put in. You got a new agent to put in, new icon that is down on the desktop that puts in. So, but the other piece you got to think about is, what is the new value that you're going to be able to offer to your customer that's going to show them that your transition benefits them as well, not just you, right? So there's some training that has to come out of that. So it's a big decision, man. And so, I welcome it and glad to see that you're looking at it. And I encourage everybody to continue looking at their tools, but don't change just for the sake of changing. Change when you understand what, when, and how to do it, so that you understand all the costs and implications that come behind it. Because it could, if you do it wrong, could cost you an employee, could cost you a customer, could cost you a lot, right? So good stuff.
Mr. Paco?
I can't add any more to what y'all just said. No, I mean, I think really there's, you mentioned a plan, right? But what are you making the plan, and who are you making the plan for? So what I mean by that is, are you planning because you hate how the system looks? Or are you making the plan because you're trying to alleviate a particular problem that not only your staff is having, but also to your end client as well? So is it affecting business? And that's where it all comes down to. I mean, I think about, wow, his name is Andy Cormier over at Synchro. He wrote a book about, how to make your, I forgot the name of the title, but it's basically for an MSP. It's like,
How you want to be an MSP?
How you want to be an MSP. And the big piece of that is, an MSP should figure out how to make money. Plain and simple. If not, join a charity if you want to help people, right? But and I say that seriously because, even Matt Lee mentioned this in a session. I remember him saying is that, MSP's pure purpose is not only to make profit, but also to help an end user, an end business gain whatever of the 3 points of a small business should make. And that's increasing their sales, reducing their costs, and expanding their market share. So have you developed your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and is your switch going to benefit from them, or benefit them, I should say? And if it doesn't, why are you making the change? So I go back to, you mentioned how we always go back and forth on, a new tool that you have discovered, or a vendor that you thought would be really, really great. And my first question to you every time is, can't you do that in X? And the answer is yes, but normally it's either it's prettier, it costs less, or it's a better experience for my clients. And then I challenge you again. By how much? You don't run your business on looking nice. And if it's going to be a better experience for your clients, does your client even give a damn about the feature now versus it even benefiting their customer experience, right? So I forgot what it was. There was I think it was like a task tray tool that he had mentioned at one. We had talked about at one point. And
I know exactly what you're talking about.
and because you went through several of them at that point, which was more funnier. But it was a task tray tool. And it'll give them this, and it'll give them X, and it can give Y, and it's going to be a great experience, and it's going to help them achieve whatever. And my question to you was, do they even use the goddamn RMM tool that's on your tray in the first place to even submit a ticket? Do they even know that that damn thing is there in the first place. And so I say that because I think that we have a lot of tools that we could be using, or we have purchased or bought into tools thinking that we're going into innovation, but in reality, we are burdening ourselves. And we're burdening ourselves, as Corey mentioned, of onboarding, offboarding the last tool, fees, training hours, burden rates. A switch costs money. The question becomes, will you get that money back? And will it truly innovate, or is it just the marketing bullshit that the company gave you about innovation? Because I will ask you, for those listening right now, what are you going to do in 5 years? And that is a genuine question. What do you see yourself doing in 5 years? Because if you think it's this, you are sadly mistaken. The way that technology is developing and the way that AI is coming into fruition, I forgot what study it was where they were saying there's a term for this. So please excuse my ignorant self of not understanding the right terms and stuff. But there's a study that says that technology expands and compounds over time in X amount of time in components and processing power. I think it was something like every 10 years or something like that. I could be wrong, but it's a compounding effect. AI has done that in 2 years compared to the compounding effect of this other of quantum or not quantum computing, but of computing and processors. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is what we used to think is not what we think right now. And even right now will not be what it is in 5 years. There's a lot of guess. A lot of people think what's going to happen, but we don't know. And I would implore you, if you ask that question to yourself, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? I would guarantee that you can help understand the innovation that's right now, or you build your foundation and your framework right now. So when the innovation does come, it does not cost as much that you have already imposed on yourself because you're trying to embrace innovation.
I think that's a great point. And yeah, we all need to ask ourselves where, and that's forecasting, right? Future forecasting. Where will we be in 5 years? What will this industry be? And we're all trying to, we know that the AI revolution is coming. I'm not even gonna say it's here yet. It's here, but it's coming. There's a lot more. If we think what we see now is great, I know that as anything else, as more and more effort and time and research and smart people get involved, we will see a serious revolution in technology, in the way we approach business. I think there will always be a need for us, but our need probably will change somewhat as to how we do it. And I think if you are stuck in the I'm going to do it this way phase, you will get left behind, right? And that's not to say that everybody needs to be exactly 100% AI focused right now, but you need to start incorporating the AI portion of this into your business at some point, so that when the revolution happens, you are not a dinosaur trying to fight with sticks and rocks and everybody else is using machine guns. So that is really the point of staying on top. But I wanted to get back to something else, because Paco and I we constantly have had this debate, this conversation about tools and what to do. So I will admit this. I did get a very starry-eyed about things, because I am one of those people who likes to dabble, right? I like to see the shiny objects, to see them work, and I like to build them, right? So that is a conversation. But I have learned through our conversations, through trust, through our conversations, and the hard way sometimes, that he was 100% right on that. And so I've adopted over the last 2 years this philosophy of, there are two things. You know how we are taught, or if you talk to someone who tells you how to sell your MSP services, they say, don't sell the features, sell the benefits, right? We have to break our tools down into those two things too. There are tools that benefit us and our clients, and then there are features that we can buy to make it look pretty. And as Paco said, and I've learned the hard way, clients don't really give a damn about the features because they really want to know what it does for us. And a lot of them don't know the difference between a EDR and an AV and a, a this and a that. And if you use EDR A today and MDR or XDR Y tomorrow, they really don't care. What they care about is when something goes wrong or is not the way it should, what they expected. That's when they really care. And for us, the quote unquote shiny object thing doesn't matter because they don't really pay attention to it. I found out a couple of days ago, I'd been telling a client forever, they didn't even realize that they could go in and see all of the invoices, right? Then they can see what they've paid. So she said to me, the only way I have to keep track of all of this because it's the only way I can figure out to tell my accountant at the end of the year. And I keep scrambling to have to figure out, what we paid you. And I was like, just go into the portal and look it up. She goes, what portal? I said, the same one we've been talking about forever. And again, she's busy. She doesn't care. She calls me when something's wrong. When nothing's wrong, I don't hear from her. Everything's fine. Pays her bill and moves on, right? But when she needs information like that, she just assumes that she has to get it her way, right? Or the way she's used to. Now, is that my fault that I didn't sell her that one of the benefits of working with us is you have access to this? Or is it that she's so busy, she don't really care? She knows how to put in a ticket or call the office when there's a problem. And that's all she really cares about, right? So we have to think, I've learned the hard way, Paco, but yes, I've learned that I don't need to have the pretty bells and whistles because honestly, 1% of them pay attention to the bells and whistles.
Man, I love this. When we talk about AI and talk about how it does, just listening to what we're doing, man, we're actually getting ready to kick off some series leveraging AI where we're putting out this series to all of our customers called Did You Know, right? Did you know that you can open up a ticket and do this? Did you know that you have a portal? Did you know that your Ring Central can do this? Did you know that we do this? Did you know we do that, right? And so it's just that constant thing. And what's great about this is that all I'm doing is taking really simple notebook LM, dropping in, did you know that we do X? And it creates a little 5-second, little podcast for them, right? Girl and woman talking about 5K. And they're talking about, hey, did you know that 5K does this, or that you can open a case by clicking the icon down to the bottom? And it does it. Doesn't take long or nothing like that, but it's going to be branded and done for us. But it's constantly something that's in front of the customer that gives them little tidbits of, hey, did you know that you can order a computer for us? Did you know that Windows 10 is going end of life? And that's kind of what's going down, man. It's a differentiator. And then you'll kind of get a chance to see for us on the backside is that, did they really pay attention? Did they click on it? Did they view it? And you can see what really matters to them, right? It's like, yeah, we don't care. We don't know what's up. We're good, right? That's really cool stuff.
Now, a couple things, and I love what Corey is saying as well, and I'm going to clarify a few things. The question becomes not where we're going to be in 5 years. What are you going to do in 5 years? That's a very understanding of when you're making your plan. You don't need to figure out what's going to happen in the industry. And if you can't fathom what's happening past today, by all means, that's not what we're asking. We're asking, what do you see you doing in 5 years? Now, if you feel like you don't want to embrace what's going on, as Rick mentioned in his very what'd you say it was going to be dinosaur ages, or what? How would you say?
Living in the dinosaur ages?
Yeah, I mean, understand that what you're doing now will likely still be around. It will not be the majority of market share of where we are right now. There are still typewriters in our era right now. People still use typewriters. People have shops to repair typewriters, but they are not the majority of market share for productivity as we speak, right? So that's one to for those that are like, that's whatever, I don't care, I'm not doing AI, whatever. Solid. Understand your opportunities are going to go lower and lower as things come up with as we went from endpoint to per user to consumption to whatever the new thing is going to happen. I think Microsoft now titled it as Agent Boss, leveraging all of the agentic AIs that are out there right now. AI is a tool that's coming in, but will it be the last tool? I think I just saw on Rob Ray's documentary for PAX 8 that ultimately it's robots. Robots are going to be doing the thing, and that's what they're going to be, people that need to manage the robots, right? So the point is that however this ends up becoming, it's not, you don't need to figure out what's going to happen in the next 5 years. The question is, what are you going to do in 5 years, and what's your plan? Are you embracing and being and nimble and willing to adapt of what's coming, or is this your last hill you're going to go ahead and put your flag in, and this is what it's all about? So that's what I mentioned of what to consider. The other piece of, as Corey mentioned, and he said, did you know, right? And being able to educate your clients. Now, Rick mentioned, hey, his client reactively reaches out to him on what's going on, but he doesn't hear from him, hear from the client unless there's an issue. I would argue that you should be in front of the client as often as you can, but my business is very different than what Rick's business is. But in embracing an innovation, and Rick being the whiz that he is inside of Go High Level, I would imagine he can build some type of automation inside of his newsletter to present a did you know, or did you know that we had X, did we have Y, removing himself from the process and allowing the automation and the systems to do its thing, right? And that's what we mean by embracing innovation. Use what you have in a different light that could be innovative for what you're doing. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to buy a new tool. It might just be you need to buy a new feature or adopt a new feature of what you have, because that is still embracing your partner. And especially if there's a new partner that can do what you want with what you have, that's going to be even more so to integrating with what you got versus replacing the whole thing, causing even more burden to happen.
I think it's interesting. We talk about that. And I love that did you know idea, Corey. I've been trying to adopt something very similar, and I just call it a quick tip, right? So I've been working on a newsletter through Go High Level to send out. What I found out is that I can do is, if I want to, in that newsletter, I can embed a video, right? And I've been thinking about, this is my FaceTime in front of a customer, Paco. I've been thinking about embedding that video in the newsletter with the quick tip, right? Click this, the quick tip about that I'm on the screen telling you whatever the quick tip is, or somebody else is on the screen telling what the quick tip is. But the thing is, I think that the goal is, again, is to educate the client into what's available to them. Because I think one of the things we have to be conscious of is the client doesn't necessarily care. They want their stuff to work, right? They want it to be fixed. They don't care about the brand, the product, the features, the whoever. They just want it to work. And they want it to be done right. They want it, they want to be able to, when they call you, you're around, or when they reach out to you, you can be there for them. But all of the stuff we do with the vendors and all that stuff, it doesn't really matter to them. But the point I was trying to make with this, which I got lost in the weeds, and I'm sorry about that, basically is we just have to let them know what is available to them. Because if they have to ask you, like when this client asked me this, it just basically the light bulb. What am I not getting across to her that she didn't realize that she can go do that, right? Now, sometimes, again, some people don't listen to us, and they're focused on what they're focused on. But there should be some way, somehow, that she can know to go get that resource or to ask for that resource, right? And that's goes back to Corey's point about did you know, or me saying here's a quick tip. Because again, when things go wrong, and they will, you stand a better chance of keeping that client through turmoil if you have done the right things by them through, when everything was good. If they were informed, if they trust you, and they understand what you're doing, or not necessarily know what you're doing, but understand the point of why they hire you and why they pay you. And I think that's the most important part of all of this. We want to make money, and the way to continue to make money is to cut down on incidents, but also have the client understand why they are paying you, why this is worth whatever you charging them. Why am I paying you $1,000 a month for this when this guy told me I could fix it for $22, which I heard the other day. But anyway,
man, you're hitting in those crucial things, man. What we do is not tangible, right? They can't really see. They know we're doing something, but they really can't see it. So I always look at it as you got to put as many things out there in front of them that show the value of what you're doing, and that's exactly what's happening, right? We do crazy stuff like, cleaning up their closet and putting an LED in the room, man, and making it look snazzy, right? Because they can actually walk in there and see that. We do things like, the videos, they see things from that perspective. But you're right. When things are going well, we don't hear anything. Everything is kind of rolling through, man. But it can take one thing. Hey, I can't print today because I got a huge brief that I got to get out in 5 minutes, and now my printer's broke. At that point, they're ready to break up with you and roll down the other way, which is, kind of what it is. But then showing that value, building that relationship, and giving them something that's tangible and saying, man, I need this, and being integral to what they do on a daily basis is what's big. And so all these things play into that big time. And so this is good stuff.
I wanted to roll back to something to stay on topic a little bit. I know because we've strayed just a little bit, but all of these things we're talking about this is how we run our business, and how you run your business should be exactly what you're looking for from your vendor, right? What you expand. I keep going back to this a lot, and when I think about what I'm doing in the business, I say this all the time. Who I say I want to be to my clients, to the people that know me, to my employees, to anyone who does business with me or considers doing business with me, it's the same thing I want from my vendor, right? I want to be that trusted partner that is there to assist you when you need me, who is there to offer you and show you other benefits that you may not have seen. And this is exactly what we need, what I expect from my vendors. And when we don't get that is when we decide that they're not loyal to me. So why should I be loyal to them? And then it's, you think about it's time really to move on.
Couldn't have said it any better than myself, Mr. Smith.
Okay. As we wind down a little bit, we're going to take a quick break here and just a little bit of public service announcement. And we'll be back.
And we're talking about my favorite thing because it is in my stomping ground. We're talking about TechCon Unplugged. If you haven't heard, we are on the road for TechCon Unplugged, and it is now the TechCon Unplugged tour. This year looks a little different. Again, we're coming, instead of you coming to us, we're coming to you. We planned 3 cities on 3 dates. We're now on our second stop, and that is in Chicago, June 20th at the Hyatt Lodge over at the old McDonald's campus for all those locals here. On our agenda, I hope you're going to join us because we're going to be bringing you our first pre-event workshop with our friends over at MSP Camp. Tahir Ahmed is going to be talking about making MSP marketing easy. What's basically what is the highest ROI first steps that you can make in marketing? We're going to have, again, a live audience podcast discussing on what you're doing now to improve and scale your business. And then along with a live MSP office hours, which we're now dubbing our MSP roundtables, to discuss what is on your mind. We'll be discussing things like AI, operational efficiency, how to avoid tool sprawl, and open the book of our businesses to show you how we're running all of our businesses and inquire and answer any questions that come up. But like any other TechCon Unplugged, we're still going to have that great evening social to continue the conversation. Again, less talking at you, more talking with you. And as we said, in the past, every voice matters. Purchase your ticket over at techconunplugged.com or head over to mspunplugged.com and you'll see the nice little button right there. And it'll take you to the respective Eventbrite link for Chicago and now live Dallas, which is going to be September 12th. So we hope to see you at one of those dates. But again, for me, importantly, we hope to see you there in Chicago coming up in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Paco. Now we're coming towards the end of this, so we're gonna kind of wrap up in the next few minutes here. But I wanted to just again circle back to where we started with this. I personally had to make the decision of making a change. I've made that. I'm in the process of making that change, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we have done. I'm sure we have done the right thing. I'm cautiously optimistic that we are making a very smooth transition so far. Just very few bumps in the road. But again, I think one of the most important things that has happened this time, as opposed to any other time that we've changed anything or done anything in the business, I have had a thorough understanding of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and then I've made a thorough plan on how I'm going to do it. And I think that has saved me countless hours of headache, countless hours of calling Paco, complaining about what I didn't know. And is made for a smoother transition. Now, a lot of this comes with, and I'll say this with everything in our business, comes with planning, right? It comes with knowing how you're going to roll something out. And it also comes with recognizing what's right and what's wrong. Because a lot of times too, we do things and we don't see the pitfalls until it's too late. So now with 20 years of experience and I don't know, umpteenth vendor changes, not that many, but enough. I do have a better sense of what to look out for. And what I do plan to do for the community is put together some kind of documentation as to, maybe we have an internal form process that we're following, but maybe something that's a little more general to give people an idea of maybe how to make this transition, some pitfalls to look out for, some steps to take. And I encourage anyone who's listening, if you have those steps and you're willing to share with the community, please do. Because all of us are going through, transitions, here and there. And it's always easier to have some type of guide than it is to just wing it and, have to figure it out yourself and then learn, as my mom would say, learn the hard way because your hard head now is leading to a soft behind. Now, I know, that's I was born in the 70s, so, it was legal then. I know everybody now is a little more sensitive, I guess I'll use the term. But anyway, so I'll just say that, I just, have a plan. Let's figure out a way to make your transition smooth and know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. Fellas?
Man, well said, brother. Well said.
I think for what you just said makes total sense outside of the child beating, but but what I will say is that I think it goes back to the title of the episode for those that are listening in. What is the takeaway from all this banter back and forth on all of our experiences on embracing innovation? And where it all comes down to is simply that is do not be emotional about your business. Have the emotional quality of understanding business is business. We do business with people we like, but sometimes those people may not be at the same places that you might be at, because that's bit me quite a bit over the last several years. So make sure you're doing this again, not in an emotional state, not on a friendship state, but business is business. And as long as the things that you're doing can take care of that, you should be fine. And especially as you move forward to what can you do more, understand that not only is there tools and systems that we've talked a lot about, but there are also a lot of great resources as far as people and knowledge that can help you with some of the things that you're doing to help unlock some of that innovation as well. So that's what I'll have for my lasting words of this episode.
Okay. Miss Corey, are we done?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in. Paco's switching this around. Thanks for tuning again. Excuse me. tuning in. We do invite you to listen to us every week. You can catch us on the video podcast, youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Do us a favor if you like, subscribe, hit the notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. If you think these guys have a face for radio, you can always catch us on the go. We're on your favorite podcatcher apps. It's Amazon Music, Spotify, just to name a few. For Corey, Paco, and I want to say thank you. Remind you to get your tickets for TechCon Unplugged Chicago or TechCon Unplugged Dallas, depending on where you are. You can use the code Paco when we're looking at the Chicago tickets. And I'm going to announce this now. We should use the code Corey when you are going to Dallas in his neck of the woods. But again, we'd like to thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.